So we all know how to build web applications. Basically, that's what all of us do. Most of us, like, then we know how to build like command line applications. But what about like graphical user interfaces? Like, who knows how to do that here? Like, yeah, not too many people. So this is about shoes. So Steve already got to the topic a bit, and just saying we're alive and doing it, because what usually happens to me is when I talk to people in the Ruby community, I'm like, yeah, I'm doing open source. So what do you do? Yeah, I'm working on shoes. I'm like, isn't that bad? Like, I looked at the web page and it looks so bad. And I'm like, then it's like, no, it's not. Like, we're still working on it. We even got a new web page now. So, woo! And like Steve said, like we replaced Apricot with Nokogiri, which Arne did back there. So big thanks at that point. So for those of you who don't know, a quick reminder, like, first, I love shoes. I've tried to get into GUI programming ever since I started, and I thought that other things, quite frankly, sucked from my point of view. So it took me forever to do stuff. Like, I have this object, I do this other object in the object, and then maybe after 20 lines of code, I have a window with a button and I can click that button. Like, wow, like, no, I don't like that. Not at all. So, let's see what you can do with shoes, basically. You can build a little game, little games. That's like a tank game. It's in the examples directory. I wrote a Twitter client in shoes. You can write a music player. And of course, there's Hackety Hack that is there to teach children how to program, which is pretty awesome. You should check it out. So, sorry. Up for some simple code examples. So here you basically have it that you have a button and you can click it, and when you click it you get a little pop-up that says like hello or whatever. Yeah, it says good job, right. So another thing that's pretty easy, you can give it an image and you say when you click on an image, hey, visit the URL. I don't know how many lines of code there would be in normal Java or Qt, but I think you would have to make an internet connection, fetch the picture, embed it, blah blah blah. And also another example, like doing gradients and that stuff's pretty simple. Like it's one line. I thought otherwise you would have to instantiate color objects and put them in a gradient object and put it in maybe 5 other objects. I think it would be like 3 lines, I don't know. So we're working on shoes 4 because people are always confused. Like there are so many different colors of shoes. Like which should I use? And for now, we use Red Shoes. That's the one that you can officially download. But we are working on a new one, Shoes 4, where we try to like get all the implementers together, pull on one string. Yeah, we made the backend pluggable, so we can have multiple backends in the future, and we're implementing it TDD style. So what do I mean by pluggable backend? We have the main layer where we got all our methods like alert, button, and other methods, and we can basically instantiate those for different backends. Like for now it's SWT, but you could imagine there could be Qt, GTK, something else, maybe Android, I don't know. So maybe a quick demo?
1 minute, 15 seconds.
Thanks. So what I did now, I'm in the shoes repo, and if you want, you can check it out, install everything. And Eric built this great task, which is rake samples, and it runs all the samples that we believe work. And that is a really simple one. It's just a circle, but then it runs another one. Let's see what we get next. It's kind of, I don't know what happens. Oh yeah, that's also really pretty. Let's see if we get an interesting one. There's actually a working Othello game. But I can start it by hand. Oh yeah, we have a clock. Wow, wait a second. Oh, wait. So we want to play Pong for a little bit. Yep. So I'm running out of time, so you can run this at home and report problems. We will really love that. So for information, you can go to chooserb.com. You can join the mailing list. You can find us on Freenode. There's Twitter. There's GitHub, and that's everything.
So I decided I was really silly and not, or really serious and non-technical earlier. So this is a very silly and technical lightning talk, briefly, called Active Model Serializers is not omakase. So what's awesome about Ruby? Conventions. First of all, like conferences like this, but also conventions in Rails, right? Like that's how we can do things so quickly with Rails, because we learn Rails as conventions, and then we don't have to make decisions. It just does the right thing. And since they're conventional, we all collectively make the same decision all the time, and therefore we work together really well. It's kind of nice, right? So this happens everywhere in Rails. So if you have, your routes file talks about posts, you have a post model, you have a post controller, there's post views, right? And we do the pluralization or singularization based on convention. The directory structure is based on convention. The names of the classes are based on convention. Tons of conventions everywhere. So I want to talk to you a little bit about APIs and JSON very briefly. And first, let's talk about what is omakase, apparently. As of Rails 4, if you build a new Rails 4 application, you will get gem JBuilder in your gem file. As it says, build JSON APIs with ease. Read this. This is included but commented out in Rails 3, if you've noticed. JBuilder lets you build JSON for your APIs, and it looks like this. So you make a app views, message.json.jbuilder, and then this would build a message by including all of the details of all the keys you wanted and all the arrays, and you would use this DSL to solve this stuff. This is omakase, but it is not convention driven, which is what I view as being the most important part about Rails. So let's talk about what's not omakase, which is pierogies. I haven't done any pierogies here yet. I really need to do that before I leave. I love pierogies so much. I felt last time I was here last year, quick aside, I had pierogies from a fast food place that were better than my grandma's homemade pierogies. I'm like Slovak ethnically, so my grandma makes pierogies. I felt really terrible. I couldn't tell her. She was like, how were they? And I was like, they were great, but not as good as yours. But So I have a gem that I'm now maintaining that was originally written by Joseph Aleem and Yehuda Katz called Active Model Serializers. Basically what you do is you make a post serializer, just like you make a post controller for your posts, and you put in what attributes you want. We do whitelisting since you probably don't want to include everything by default. Then in your controller, you get the posts and you do this render JSON posts, which is what you would normally do to render something with JSON. This would use the built-in serializers, but instead this actually looks up your active model serializer class and builds the JSON based on that. And you would get some JSON that looks like this. Entirely based on convention, you don't actually write any templates, you just get objects. You can do more complicated things as well. So for example, we do has many comments, because that's what you do in Active Record, so that's what you should do in your associations as well. And that would give you this embeddable array of comments with the IDs and bodies and etc. You can do more complicated stuff than that. So for example, maybe you don't want to repeat all the stuff about comments all the time. So you can actually say embed IDs, and what it'll do is it'll give you this comment IDs array, and then an array of comments with the IDs. This helps because if you see the comments have tags, we wouldn't want to embed tag 1, which is in both comment 1 and 2, over and over and over again. We just want to include a reference to one or the other. So this is a really awesome way to make JSON. It is relatively fast. You don't have to think about the details. And as this becomes a little bit more settled, Yehuda and I are working really well to make this specifically work with Ember, but I also want to make this work well with any client-side JavaScript framework, so you don't have to think about how you expose your models at all to any single-page applications you build. You just include the gem, and you get convention-driven JSON instead of template-driven JSON. As of right now, you can install it. You should use it from GitHub because I am terrible and have not yet released a new gem with all the new stuff. So to run on Edge, you just gem Active Model Serializers with GitHub Rails API Active Model Serializers, and hopefully in the next week or so, I will be releasing a gem. I've been putting all my time into the Rails release and have been abandoning my other projects, unfortunately, because I'm terrible at open source. So that is basically all I have to say about that. This was originally in Rails until it got reverted for the JBuilder solution, so I would like you all to pretend that it is part of the default Rails and ignore that JBuilder stuff because it's bad. Thank you.
talk is entitled Don't Use Redis, and I would like to start it with just saying that I really love Redis. Redis is cool, Redis is fast, Redis is awesome, I use it everywhere, I use it every day, I cannot work without Redis. However, there is one thing where I wouldn't use Redis, and because I used and I had some tough time, and I would like to talk about it. So, imagine this application. You have an app which handles a lot of web traffic and does some serious number crunching based on DB, let's be it MySQL here. So in order to keep the application responsive, fast, and so on, you decide to do some backend processing. So great, you look up Ruby queues, and basically what is proposed to you and what is recommended are rescue and sidekick. These are great, you look, oh cool, Heroku recommends them, cool, I'm gonna use them. And you go with it, you hack, you test, you deploy, and boom, disco. Everything goes fine, you are awesome, you think, hey, I'm awesome, this works, this is cool. Yeah, you go for a beer, you drink because you are awesome. And everything works until something bad happens, something goes wrong. There's a number of things that can go wrong in this system. You can lose your workers' instances, for example, you can lose network connections between machines and so on. And what happened to me was when my client logged the DB for over 40 hours and my workers couldn't do any number crunching because they couldn't read or write anything to the database. That was terrible, and basically what happened next was Redis went bonkers, right? It started consuming every single piece of RAM that it got, which is cool because this is what Redis does. It's entirely memory-based, it's great. So the next thing that happened was my admin was like this guy. He called me at 1 a.m. and told me... So the guy at 1 a.m. on Tuesday told me, dude, we are 1 hour from OM killer killing our Redis. And I was like, this. Trying to, put out the fire with a bucket of water, which is basically a bad idea. And I started coming up with crazy solutions like, we actually spin up an additional Redis instance to offload work to it, which was empty, so that the other one didn't die, and the new one was storing the new events. We could also multiply workers like crazy, which we did later when we were able to unlock the database and our workers started working finally. And we did this hoping to avoid OM killer killing our Redis, because OM killer killing our Redis meant no events, nothing, we are dead. So, in conclusion, do I think that using Redis for queue is a good idea? Nope. So I would like to talk about alternatives, because I don't want to leave you with this, don't do this and so on. So, for alternative, you could use, for example, Beanstalk, which is disk-based, is cool, but it tends to behave weirdly under heavy loads. I've seen it live and it was terrible. And what I eventually went with was RabbitMQ-based task queue called Celery. This is a Python project, the entire application is Pythonic, and I would like to ask anybody from you, port the thing to Ruby. So I can use it in my Ruby applications, I can be a happy developer, because there is nothing like Celery in Ruby world now, which is sad. So the final remark is, when I think Redis, I start thinking Redis and think RabbitMQ instead. True story. So this is it from me. Thank you very much. I'm Tomek at BTH Labs. Have a nice day.
Okay, thank you.
Ready?
Ready?
Show me that you can use
Ready,
it.
ready, I can use it. I practiced the whole conference. Hi, I'm Rudy, so I'm here to talk about the dependency inversion, like it's my favorite principle, but I would like to start with single responsibility principle, and I totally agree with everything that Brian said today, that we need to build a system composed of small and independent objects. They need to be simple, like we can start with just one thing, but then we end up with a big network of objects, and we need to find a way to wire them up. So like the standard way to do that in Ruby is to link them statically. Most people just expose some kind of static interface on the dependencies. So in this example, we have a Twitter class that uses HTTP client to post messages, So we can add those dependency via method parameters, but we here still are bound to that one constant name, the HTTP client. So sometimes I can switch that, but there is no good way to do it for all the instances, etc. And still, my interface is kind of polluted with that one additional parameter. I can do that externally via constructor, which is the dependency inversion, where we rely on some kind of abstraction, that HTTP client that goes into the constructor, and then it's used in the tweet method. So we don't choose any particular implementation here. And thanks to that, we can remove all the wiring from our domain code and put that in something like, for example, injector, where injector knows how to create a Twitter client using, for example, the HTTP client. It knows how to create HTTP client and then dependencies. But this piece of code looks kind of like duplication. There is an HTTP client that creates HTTP client, a Twitter that creates Twitter. So that's kind of boilerplate. So we thought that there is that we can automate that, and we remove all that. So there is the new injector. It's 3 lines long. You just need to include the depender auto inject. It's based on convention, so it knows how to create HTTP client and how to create Twitter and the dependencies. And so now the Twitter class is like 1 line longer. It just has that thing called takes HTTP client. It's just a shortcut for defining constructors. So it's convention over configuration. So in the default case, you remove all the wiring. You create the default HTTP client. But if you want to switch the implementation to, for example, event machine or something, you can create a method on the injector that would inject that parallel thing. But your code would never know about the change, and you would never have to change the Twitter to be aware of that. So let's take a look at the examples. So in the first case, we are coupled to the name. And in the second example, we just have one more line where we declare all the dependencies, which I think is quite a good thing when we know what are the other entities that our system talks to. And in tests, in the first example, we need to stop on a constant, which is not a good idea. And in the second example, we can use a special helper called isolate. It just takes from the local context all the dependencies you have for your given class. So in case of Twitter, it just takes the HTTP client and plugs a regular stuff there. But you could as well plug a fake implementation. So you could do the whole isolation without any stubbing. That kind of that can be done. And that's ready, and we use that in production for over a year. So use it, and if you have any comments, just tell us. Thank you.
So I'm Norbert, that's my handle everywhere that matters, which is not most places. So I've been known this, for the last couple of days, people keep calling me the troll, and Andrew says he can't figure out when I'm serious and when I'm trolling, which is a good thing. And last year I was talking about forms as objects, and you all were looking at me weird, and now I have finally some authority in the sense that I can point to people that are a lot smarter than me, and they're saying the same things. So in the spirit of that, I wanted to troll a little bit. So building things with Lego. I think we should start I like to think of this kind of like a pre-flight checklist for committing code, in the sense that obviously it should be correct. We're a Ruby community who really believe in making readable code, and dry is like the penultimate thing you can do, right? I mean, if you have 2 lines of code anywhere in your code base that's the same, you gotta pull it out. I don't care what you do. And I think the real problem is that I like declarative, and I don't think we're doing declarative enough. So this is what this talk is about. Declarative is not prescriptive. That's my definition. And I'd like to keep that in the back of your head about declarative. And I want to switch topics for a bit and talk about transformations. So a transformation is something that accepts an input and turns out an output. Since I was in the panel for the FP, you can sort of figure out where this is going, right? But the thing about the transformations is, where do transformations happen in real life, in our apps? And I would say they happen almost everywhere. For example, Rails 4 is going to have that, safe params thing, and basically anywhere we're converting some kind of data and we're getting back a different kind of data is a transformation. And I think we're not thinking enough about the fact that it's a transformation and we can sort of abstract it out. And this is sort of what I want to get towards. I don't have a solution, but I just want you to start thinking about this. Why don't we abstract out this concept that there's a transformation? So transformations are fun because they can be chained, but what happens to the error handling? If an error happens somewhere in that black box, what do we do with it? Well, that's what a state monad is for, correct? So this is, Lego is just this thing I've been playing with on GitHub. Do not download the code and deploy it to production, please. But, yeah. So one thing that I'm trying to figure out, what are axioms that are important to me? So I've been thinking that this is stuff I want in my applications. Immutable value objects. And domain objects are always in a valid state. So I don't believe in this concept that there's an active model and it has a valid question mark method on it. I think that sort of defeats the purpose. If I have a person, object instantiated, I want it to be a person, and I don't want to care if it's valid or not. And if we take these axioms and like try to push it as far as possible. If these are the axioms lived by in your application, what does it do with the code you write? And about the turtles all the way down thing, it's basically, does everyone get the reference to that? Or do I have to explain that? Silence. Okay. So like, Ruby is turtles all the way down, sort of, in the fact that everything's an object, all the way down, right? We sort of don't, we cheat at the end, but we like to think that everything's an object. So similarly, transformations are, I sort of want to think transformations and state monads and things, all the way down to the end. So, like, for example, you can implement either monad in Ruby using classes. It's sort of pseudocode, but you can check out the repo for that. And the funny thing is, so anyone who doesn't know what a state monad is, basically when you take in an input and the last result was a success, just call it the next binding on it. And if it isn't, just return self. And so that if you have an error midway through a transaction, it's just going to keep returning that error all the way to the end, and you don't have to do any if check statements at the end. So how could this look like if we were to build a parser for it? So basically you have a parser, like parse string, and you can have like options, matches, regex, and so forth. And a lot more, and so you build this thing and it checks, basically, is a person a valid thing or not? So similarly, if it's not valid, you could do something like this. I mean, the DSL is not there yet, but I'm just trying to get this concept across to you. And what's really cool about this is that you can nest it. So you can have something that basically is something that defines arrays. And like, for example, I'm saying here that you have to have at least one item, and every item in this array has to be something that has to be parsable by the parser I just defined earlier. So if you're interested in these kind of things, please do catch up with me over beer later, because I have a lot of issues and fun things you can do with this stuff. All right, thank you.
Before I start, I just want to give a quick shout out to a new project. So we talked about YAML vulnerabilities, right? I was Skyping with, oh shit, that's really, sorry, excuse my language. I don't know what's exactly what. I was Skyping with Tom Preston Werner the other day, and he was like, YAML gives me rage! So he made Toml. So check it out, it's really awesome. You just give me something? Okay. Cool. So I'm ready to start. Okay. So today I want to talk about kindness in open source. It's kind of a difficult subject because most of the people in open source nowadays or in programming are dudes, and we like to dish out everything that we get. So I want to change that today. I'm Parker. I go by ParkR on Twitter, GitHub, whatever. I'm a Cornell University student. I'm a junior, third year, and I love this place so much. It's amazing. If you ever get the opportunity to go to Ithaca, do it. It's amazing. I'm an intern at Sechs Wunderkinder in Berlin this semester and through the summer. And that's why I'm here. I am a maintainer for Jekyll. You may have used it, and Octopress as well, as of like 2 months ago. So I'm still new to this. So who, raise your hand by a show of hands, maintains an open source project? Go. A lot of you. Holy crap. So have you ever had like a total noob post like an issue or pull request and you're like, I don't know, like what does this method do? How does this work? Why is there an encoding error? Right? Yeah? Have you? That was a question. Cool. So what's your first reaction? right. You're like, guys, you're a total noob, like, get the fuck out, like, lol. Let me break it down for you, I'll tell you something. So, like, and it's because we're all like, I think I have an idea of what I'm doing right here, like, don't tell me what to do, and don't ask stupid questions, it's annoying. And they have some really dopey ideas, like, I'm really sorry, Kanye, but the glasses were stupid, like super. So you know, we get some commenters, some newbies who are very similar to Kanye in this way. Also, whoever made Comic Sans had a really dopey idea. We all know that. But I want you guys to think of them like this really adorable baby who also has a noob shirt on. Think of them in a way that and give them your compassion. And yes, it's really annoying. Yes, it takes 2 minutes of your day, but give them a little bit of love and compassion. Newbies are valuable. They're the ones that are eventually going to contribute the best pull requests and really help out your project and push it forward once they get there, once they learn. And dopey ideas are sometimes turned into amazing features. You can modify something that's really stupid at the beginning and turn it into something absolutely extraordinary. And they need constructive criticism. Don't just dismiss them. I've been in this position before where, like on Jekyll, for example, people are like, I really wish we had this feature, like a meme for the bottom of every single one to be used on GitHub pages, which is you have to have the plugin in Jekyll in the main Jekyll repo for it to work on GitHub pages so that it's safe, etc. It's stupid, it's ridiculous. And my first reaction is to be like, no, absolutely, no chance that that's going to happen. But I need to help those newbies out and give them constructive criticism. And take advantage of my opportunity to teach them how this project works and how open source works as well. And break the news nicely. Like I said before, they end up being the ones that are the most valuable. It makes our community so much better. The Ruby community is already amazing, but we can be even better if we're just really nice to each other. And remember, Mats is nice, so we're nice. That is my daily mantra. Every time I hop on GitHub and I'm like, ugh, facepalm. So this is the last of it. So next time you're going through the issues on your project, take a minute to help out the noobs who are hanging around your projects because they're going to be the most valuable people in the future. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's go. Hi, my name is Hubert. So I'm going to talk about Linux. I call LXCs. What is that? This is Linux containers. And I kind of had a look at Linux containers and used them in the past in the form of Virtuoso or OpenPC. I'm not really remember which one of that it was, but I used that in production and it was nice. It gave me this virtualization on top of single kernel. So I had different processes, different file systems, etc. So it was nice. So I had to look into it again recently. And I kind of felt like I was back in 2002. So that's actually me, Photoshop. So it didn't feel that great, so I wasn't really impressed. So I was kind of like that. So, you know, but I've read some more documentation about it and some more blog posts and found out about LXC. And since I've been using Vagrant, I wanted to use that for development. And actually it works pretty well. And it solves a few problems that Vagrant has currently. Basically, you can get rid of VirtualBox, which is the pain in the ass in Vagrant. VirtualBox gets this dedicated memory space that you cannot really share with the rest of your operating system. So if Vagrant adds them all, it's just a slice of memory dedicated to it. The same goes with the disk space, and it's even worse if you run out of Vagrant disk space, then you have to do some black magic to resize the disk, add extra partition or whatever. So it's not nice. And at the same time, you can use the same provisioning that you already been using. So you can use Chef, Capistrano shell, whatever. And you have exactly the same environment as in production. Not almost exactly, but exactly. So you can have it set up the same way on different machines. Main thing is that it's for me the great is that performance is not degraded. So it's exactly the same performance as it was running without any virtualization, which is great. Behind the scenes, that just enhanced the change root environment. We've added abstraction for the network and file system. Like FreeBSD jails, Solaris has its own solution, which I don't remember what's the name of it. And you can actually save more disk space if you're using BRTFS. Then you can use copy on write. So if the files are identical as in your base template, so you're not like copying over those files to create a template. But it's not for Mac users, unless you obviously install Linux on top of it, or you can use Vagrant in VirtualBox. So, you could do that. It's easy for you to start if you're already using Linux, as I think a lot of people on this conference use, which is nice. It's easier to set it at Zen, which is really a pain in the ass, and it's faster than VirtualBox. So how do you set it up? Apt-get install LXC. I like to put my virtual machines images in my home directory. You probably have to do some more stuff, like I like to set up this IP address and host name, and you start it with LXC start, and it starts instantly. It's like 2 seconds and it's up. This is a few comments that you can use. You can use LXC start, stop, freeze to suspend, restore to resume, etc. The things you would expect, really. And it shares the file system, so it just has the file system within your file system, so you can copy over stuff into it, symlink, whatever. To use this port forwarding, you could use 2 IP tables comments that you don't have to type them all the time, just put it in script. And Vagrant support is coming. It's coming really soon. There's actually a project which I didn't try yet that integrates those both 2 things. So you could share your project with those remaining Apple developers. And the bottom line is lightweight, saves your RAM, makes development easier. That's all. So find me here. That's my handle if somebody wants to find it, and I'll be posting a link to this presentation afterwards. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Hello, I'm Mateusz, and I'm going to talk about why you should give Erlang a try. And let's start with why it is cool. And it was a commercial product, so you have commercial style documentation. There's a lot of stuff, really big standard library, but it was open source in 1998. So you've got a really powerful tool that's completely free. It's a concurrent system, so it spins the number of threads equal to the number of cores, and it has its own scheduler, so it can schedule the lightweight processes on all the cores, so you can run full speed on your machine. It is also distributed, so it is transparent for you to run a code on your machine and or on another machine. And also it has batteries included. The standard library contains lots of stuff. And I think the thing that I like the most is the hot code reload. You can compile, load up, and reload working code. You do not have to shut down your server. You just do it while you are running, and it is possible that nobody will notice that you have changed something and you are, for example, fixing a bug. The other thing is that it is also about the libraries. It has lots of templates that allow you to make similar stuff. For example, there is a generic server. You have to implement all the callbacks, how it works, and it does the common stuff for you. And it's also a functional language, so I think it's a feature. And who uses it? Well, Chef uses it. They rewrote the Chef server to use Erlang. EJAPRD is written in Erlang. Facebook uses it for the Facebook chat. RabbitMQ is in Erlang too. CouchDB is in Erlang. And there are many more projects in Erlang. So this is the reason why you should give it a try. On macOS, you install it like this. On Linux, you just install it depending on your package manager. If you are using Debian stable, you should check out backwards because the packages in Debian are quite old. Also, if you are looking for resources, just Google these two books. The first one is free, you can read it on the internet, and the second one is quite good too. For documentation, just look at Erlang or /doc. If you don't like the syntax, because that can happen, Erlang was inspired by the Prolog, so that's why the syntax is hard. You can try installing Elixir. I don't know how to install it on Linux, so you have to Google for that. And there's one more thing. In 1990, they created a movie about promotional movie how the system works, and it's this like a Monty Python sketch, but it's not meant to be funny. It's really awesome. Just go to that URL and save it for later. It is really great. So thanks. I'm Mateusz, and you can find me on Twitter _Len. Thanks.
Cool. Let's go. So hi, my name is Martin. I've been sober for the last 12 hours. Yeah, I recently got to be CTO at NetGuru, which is cool, and this is my shameless self-promotion talk. So basically, my brain works like in two modes. The first mode is like the first gear. I'm totally lazy in the first gear. So in the first gear, I can lie back on my. I can just lie down on the floor or read something sometimes, but it cannot be like very complicated. And it's just I'm being lazy in the first gear. In the second gear, I'm super productive. I do everything. I mean, I just cannot stop to do everything I have to. Yeah, and like a disclaimer for my boss, in the last 5 years I was in the second gear like all the time. Anyways, those last 2 days were very, very special. I was in the first gear, I really relaxed, I enjoyed all the presentations. Given the amount of beer I drank, I mean, it might be like a 0 or -1 actually. Anyways, today at the security presentation, I sort of got like interested in it, and yeah, and the second gear kicked in. So, how many of you actually tried to use the YAM vulnerability in Rails? I mean, like, got an application that was vulnerable and tried to hack it. Yeah, it's a really cool thing to do, but it's also like a little bit uncomfortable because you have to construct some classes and there are some keys around here and there, and well, they're not readable, they don't work, and it started to bore me. Like 6 minutes later I was bored and backing up to the first gear, but then the second gear kicked in again, so well, I got the gist to work, then I tried it against like a real life application, so let's just go for the real life application. So I created like a real life application, which is very useful, and tried the gist against it, and it worked. So this was cool. And then the second gear did not want to like go away. So I embedded the script in another application, and what I did with this another application is I tried to use it against the first one. So let's send the first one a gift. Well, yeah, it might take a while because the servers are spawning. I got 2 minutes. Oh, okay, it's done. Basically, I was still in the first gear when I was doing the CSS files, right? So let's see if this works. Well, it works. I mean, my application is not secure, seriously. Yeah, and I placed like some links there, and yeah, now it works. So basically, that's it. I just wanted to say that this was an awesome conference. I was in the first gear and I enjoyed it. And then, like in the right time, I got to the second gear. I did something. Of course, I'm not crazy enough to put that on production. I mean, you don't go to hackmyrails.com and see that working. Thank you.
Does it work? No.
Should.
Hello. Okay, thanks. Cool. So yeah, I guess I'm ready. Okay, so hi, my name is Tomasz. You might recognize me or not, doesn't matter. Basically, I wanted to, the official title of my talk is theoretically about Bookridge, a startup that I launched pretty recently, but it's going to be more of a technical talk about the inners, and I hope it's going to be a bit inspirational. So the title is kind of a bait, building a profitable startup in 50 lines of code. If your bullshit detector went off, then it's good. don't turn it off. Okay, so you can find me on Twitter or on GitHub, and in a few other places which I'm kind of too embarrassed to link here. As my daily job, I basically work at Rebased. It's kind of like, I think, my company. I'm not sure after yesterday. And so I did this startup with music in pay what you like model. It was before Humble Music Bundle. And pretty recently, like 5 days ago, we launched Bookridge with ebooks. And you can Google it, you can find it anywhere. But this is not a startup conference or any other fab circle, so we're not going to pitch our project, we're going to talk about ideas and technical stuff. So, enough of the advertisement, back to doing a startup in 50 lines of code, how to do it. So, I ship you not, this is the current rate stats from the Bookridge project. It even has not 50 to 49 lines of actual code. Don't look at the tests, they're kind of like a residue okay, well, maybe later about tests. So, of course, the 50 lines of code is bullshit. There's no magic, there's only cheating. So, basically, what made me, how it's achieved is, of course, there's an engine with all the backend code, modes and controls extracted from MusicRage and then just change the views. But still, when MusicRage was released for the first time in May, the whole actually working code was 245 lines. How do you do a profitable startup or full service that solves a problem, real problem? It's kind of autonomous and it's in 245 lines of code. Well, there were actually pretty few controversial ideas that my co-founder at the first glance didn't like or was against. I kind of was very feeling strongly about them, and now he apologized later. So, how to achieve profitable startup in 250 lines of code? First thing, basically, if you can delegate anything to an external service, external vendor, external library, do it. So, in case of music creation, book creation, payment processing done by external service, the files are hosted on Amazon S3, which solves a lot of problems. Emails are being sent through SendGrid, so no configuration of email server, and for content management, I use Rails admin. Also, there were a few technical, critical version decisions. For instance, what do you think is the model that's present in 99% of Rails applications out there? User. Exactly. That's why we are not doing the model user. So the idea was to inspire basically by people who were doing from 19th century, I think, who were preparing for long trips to go to the North and South Pole. They were basically doing free lists of what's really critical for survival, what's needed, and what's nice to have, and they were dropping the latter two lists off the table. So, no user accounts. Seriously, we don't need user accounts on every fucking service. There are a lot of services which just start and they offer you only the option to sign in, and maybe after some time they'll show you the product. That's bullshit. I hate it. I never registered such sites. And even you can do a working service that solves the problem and doesn't have a user model. It's also pretty side bonus. You can do a cheap page caching, which basically makes everything work even when your site is featured on the main page of Reddit, and you get 40,000 page views in like an hour or two. This happened. Because of the delegation, basically, you can also do a kind of soft anti-piracy mechanism like expiring URLs to S3. So the thing is that basically today's ecosystem makes it really easy to solve a real problem and build a real working service. So if you're not doing them if you're not solving real problems within a small amount of Rails code, which is pretty possible now, please start doing it. There are a lot of problems out there.
Just in time. Last one. Okay, so we have one bonus lightning talk.
I promise to be fast. Alright, so I'm Michael Papis, I do RVM, and I wanted to share with you a new feature of RVM. It's not yet stable, it's on hand, Autolibs. So, why do we have Autolibs? Basically, to have working Ruby, to do something with Ruby gems, Ruby requires Libian, and RVM was installed internally. So every time you install RVM was installed for Libian, which then was linked to Ruby. But it changed recently with Ruby 2. You get Ruby gems 2, which have increased security, and you should be using OpenSSL also to make it all working properly. So I dropped the idea of installing libraries internally in RVM. We now switch to using package managers, and because there was a lot of noise that RVM should not automatically integrate with package manager, you have to use option autolibs equals free, and this option will automatically for you check your package manager. If you are on OS X, it detects Homebrew, MacPorts thing, and automatically will install all the required libraries needed by Ruby. I know that the number 3 doesn't tell a lot, so I have opened a ticket, and I would love to get your feedback. If that new names are good, if you like them or not, if you like the default that the libraries are not installed by default. So if you prefer to get libraries installed by default, I will love to get your feedback about this. And that's all. Talk to me, whatever it is.